Oh, hello.
Well, hello. I know True is on. I think he's probably fumbling free.
There we go.
True? True, you there?
Hi, Dr. True.
I think he's muted at the moment, but yeah, we got the whole crew here today.
Okay, yeah, I'll run in through the intro. This is the story behind the story. This is Major James Burdock reporting from the Philippines. We have. Hey, we caught you.
What is that? True. What is that? Yeah, what is that bot thing going on?
I have no idea, True, but we gave you a warm intro. Welcome to your show.
I think that was Don Moreau. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Because the audio on my end is really quite spotty and choppy, but be that as it may, welcome to the show. I mean to tell you, folks, this has been an amazing flashback day for me. I went through some of my old files. I got to tell you, this brings back a lot of memories. I want to, again, it's the day after Sohain, All Hallows Eve, where all hell literally breaks loose across this world by the powers of darkness. Folks, this is very real. It's very in your face. When you realize that literally tens of thousands of innocent little children their lives are snuffed out on this night, while people that are just so unaware are going knocking on doors saying, trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. And they think it's all harmless fun and jokes. And the mainstream media just promotes it to the point where, as of last count, 2019 Halloween profits will be right up there on a par, second only to Christmas. Now, what happened to this nation? What has happened to this nation when we lose sight of our spiritual founding? We lose sight of what made this nation great to begin with, no matter what the Trumpster says about making. It's great because America has historically been a nation under God, a nation that is good, because we look to God and His. Great. That's the only way you can make it great. It's not about draining the swamp. It's about looking to God, looking to the foundations of what's great. And massive injustice and pedophilia at the highest level. This is what this show has been trying to do, attempting to do over 20 years, ladies and gentlemen. We've shined the light on these cockroaches. I can't tell you how many interviews I did on the story by story with people like John DeCamp at the Franklin cover-up, Franklin Savings and Loan cover-up. My good friend, I just cannot say enough good about Ted Gunderson, and the fact that he put his life on hold after he retired as bureau chief of the Los Angeles FBI, one of the top heads of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, retires and puts everything into exposing and trying to get indictments to stop this organized ritual sexual abuse of children. And we're going to talk about this tonight on the show, but before we go there, I want to just again do a shout out to people tuning in on the Goldwater Network. We surely appreciate the work and effort of Philip Fairbanks and Major Burdock, and of course James Watkins joins us again. James and A. For this hard-hitting show tonight, but I want to just lay it out there for all those who have ears to hear and who care, who give. I'm just going to say it, who gives a damn, a tinker's damn about something that is really, really still continuing to be out of control. Now, we're going to touch into how this goes into Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, and talk about that a little bit as well. The only mainstream media, Fox News, had the chutzpah to actually report that the medical examiner's autopsy on the cadaver, whether it's really Mr. Epstein or not, is questionable to me. But anyway, that it was not a suicide from the top bunk. It was nothing of that. There was absolute total evidence it was a strangulation.
How would you even do that? Come on. Come on. How would you? He's an Olympic athlete, and he did what is it? A triple Lutz? Yeah.
And used toilet paper to strangle himself. Yeah, right. We'll talk on that. But before we do, I want to just give a spotlight first and foremost. Research done by Major Burdock on PayPal. I think this is important to blow the whistle on this one too. Major, you posted a snippet on what you discovered about PayPal. Do you want to kind of on that part of the story behind the story tonight?
Well, we've got something. We've got something that just came out, and it's not just the artist. There's a conservative artist in Los Angeles. A lot of you know him. Who they absconded with his money, and then there was an article that came out, and they said, maybe we'll give him his money, but his account is still closed. Now, my question to you, and Phil, I know this happened to you, which is one of the things, and it's very curious. PayPal, as far as I'm concerned, is a banking type of institution. I mean, I've used it. We've used it to pay employees. We paid reporters at the Goldwater with it. I mean, it's a great tool to get money from here to there. It's a bit expensive, but it works. And as far as I know, I mean, unless there's commenting fields or something, how on earth can you violate the terms of service with PayPal regarding political beliefs, because they're just dealing in numbers? I mean, and this to me is baffling. And when you first told me about it, Phil, and I hope you don't mind me, because Phil had it happen to him.
Yeah. You don't have to break the rules for them to, yeah.
Well, you're saying something on a different network and they take your money.
I was writing, I do have been for years. I write about kratom, a legal plant that's a botanical cousin of coffee. And I've written about it for the Goldwater and Inquisitor.
I need to interrupt you. I got to interrupt you, Phil. You're not writing about this on a PayPal platform. You're not writing about this. No. I mean, you're writing about this at the Goldwater or on other. Okay, but I mean, you didn't make comments on your transactions saying buy kratom. You were.
No. You got to understand, kratom.
You weren't doing anything.
Is a beneficial plant, guys.
Well, I mean,
there are pharmaceutical companies, including the Alphabet company that owns pharmaceutical companies that are hurt with their profits by kratom. So they have an opportunity to push you down into the hole so that people are stuck paying $1,000 a month or more for their opioids when they can get the problem solved.
More effective with less side effects. Yeah.
But, I mean, getting away from the topic, I mean, it's it could be anything offensive. Jim, you run a very large social media network that just got shut down. You testified in front of Congress, and I mean that's there's responsibilities involved in that. But if you were running PayPal, you wouldn't be responsible for monitoring your PayPal users on other mediums, would you? And figuring out whether or not you should shut them down? I dare say that this is social credit scoring at its absolute worst. And that's my diatribe, gentlemen. These people are shutting down artists. Okay, whether you call them an artist or not, I mean, they're different tastes. But my point is this is a bank, and it is transferred over into the banking system. This is social credit scoring, 100%. And I'll leave it rest at that, because I didn't see any place. I went on PayPal today, and I tried to comment on something. Maybe I could say something offensive regarding what happened to a CSR, but I wouldn't do that. But there's no other way of inputting text into PayPal. So
there are billions and billions of dollars at stake, and those are not dollars that belong to the ordinary people. Those are dollars that belong, as they think they belong, to the people that already have billions and billions of dollars. And they are using these things. Okay, you're right. It's online currency to be able to go to PayPal and they are putting their moral opinions on stuff, and they are doing it for their own ulterior motives so that they can make money on the side from pharmacy. That's why you can't use Kratom on PayPal. You know, there's no. I have friends that
that's
grow
the thing. I understand not being able to, like, they don't want you to buy or sell Kratom with PayPal. I knew that was the rule. They have that rule, right? But writing about it, you know what? I'm pretty sure that you could write a fictional novel about murder, and even though murder is illegal and you can't buy or sell murder on PayPal, writing about it, you shouldn't get banned.
Well, Phil, nobody writes about anything on PayPal. That's really the point here.
Well, right. If you get paid,
I mean, that's pretty much.
Yeah.
And so that wraps up my rant, Dr. True. I appreciate you letting me do this because I was so upset about this. It's just, man, I feel better now a little bit, and of course, you know, and Jim and Phil certainly feel kind of flabbergasted. Phil having a defunct PayPal account, but that's a rant on PayPal. We're going to turn it back to you, True.
Well, thank you. Let's. I'm going to jump into this story because to me it's dynamite. I mean, it's huge, and the story is this, folks. Finally, after years and years of claiming there was nothing to the story of the Mark Martin case and the subsequent investigation by Ted Gunderson, myself, and many other investigators we're just written off as crazy conspiracy theorists, nut jobs, nothing to this, just trying to make a name and to sell whatever product. You know, it's nothing I'm selling, never have sold, and neither did Ted Gunderson and John DeCamp and others. No. Finally, the FBI declassified. Now, they classified files on the group, the CIA front group called the Finders, and the McMartin preschool child trafficking cases. This is absolutely amazing. I spent most of the day today reviewing those 380-something pages, and I'm telling you, talk about being angry. I'm beyond upset. The stonewalling, the outright lies, let me tell you why it's personal to me. When Ted Gunderson was diagnosed with a fast-moving cancer, and he knew his health was and energy was declining, he was a guest at my home in Ogden, and I had a balcony area where I have a barbecue grill, and I grilled him up a hamburger as we took a break from taping all of his a huge amount of documentation he brought to the table. And here's this, I mean, Ted Gunderson is anybody's idea of a tough guy. I mean, you don't go to the top of the FBI, especially in a crime-studded area like Los Angeles, Southern California, without being a tough guy. He's a tough man. As I served him up the hamburger and garnish, and sat there and we ate, and he was looking over. We had quite a view from my balcony. We view over the whole city of Ogden, looking at jets come into Hill Air Force Base, and here's this tough guy. After he finished eating, he just broke down and put his hands over his face and cried crocodile tears and sobbed that he had failed. That is basically his whole career was a failure, because you see he had spent every waking moment and a lot of money to bring people to justice that were involved in what he says is the worst crime imaginable, that of ritually abusing and even murdering young children, innocent young children. Here's this tough guy sobbing uncontrollably, pulling out his handkerchief and wiping his eyes, and he says, I'm a failure because I have never received an indictment. Nobody, every case that I brought in to the federal authorities, the grand juries, they never indicted anybody. They refused to prosecute. And he says the evidence was rock solid. And I did. I put my arm around Ted and said, it's not your fault. You did your best. It's the system. You can't be, held liable for the system that's failed. And he says, but if I can't make a difference, who can? Now, see, that's what's a lot of, there's been a lot of negative people out there, these disinformation shills that say Ted Gunderson was involved and was covering everything up. No. How dare you say this, people? If you even think that for 1 minute, shame on you. You see, it's a system. The system that is controlled by some very powerful, call them whatever you want, call them the deep state. I call them the underground Satan. I mean, folks, these are people that have no moral compass whatsoever. And you see, the thing they fear the worst is the spotlight being shown on them about this topic, because it is their Achilles heel. It is their soft spot, so to speak. Now, I went through and made some notes here. First of all, I when I first came on Revolution Radio, I won't say the name of the host. He's one of the stars, used to be at least one of the stars of Revolution Radio. He invited me to come on his show as a new host, and I did so. But before we went on the air, he made it clear to me that I was not to talk about the McMartin daycares, because he knew for a fact that was a fraud and Ted Gunderson was a phony. And I said, excuse me, sir, I know just the opposite, but I don't need to talk about that. But I don't want to be on your show ever again until you realize that you're wrong. The McMartin day, he says, no, you're wrong. There is no tunnels underneath there. I was right there. I was in the neighborhood. I know it is absolutely a phony story. Sir, if you're listening to this radio show tonight, shame on you. How dare you? The FBI declassified. This is proof positive that this is very real. Okay.
The same kind of underground tunnels they had at McMartin. And then a little quick segue here. I don't know if you're familiar with Dave. We were talking about it in chat earlier. Dave McGowan's Program to Kill, The Politics of Serial Murder. He goes into, I cannot remember which one of these, I think it's Bob Berdella or something. It goes into all these serial killers that have these weird, like, military and intel ties or ties to law enforcement, and then you just kept getting away no matter how much they were out in the open. And this one guy, he kept these really, gruesome, graphic, and detailed notebooks. One of them references Oliver North, the same Oliver North that hung out with the Satanist Michael Aquino, who was the top guy and one of the top military psyops guys who, whenever they came, it's a satanic panic. Yeah. Sorry about that, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right on. And again, I want to just pay tribute to Alex Studer, our late co-host, and all the work that he did. I mean, he was right there at the front gates of Bohemian Grove, and Michael Aquino's participation there at the Bohemian Grove and other places is right in Northern California. Alex was on top of it. He knew exactly what was going on. Mm-hmm. He had his life threatened by Aquino, actually, and Anyway, be that as it may, let me turn the clock back to let you know again what my memory banks are, and I go back to a lot of my old computer files, etc. And this is again documented we did over 8 hours of videotaping. Myself, Ted Gunderson, John DeCamp, and others. If you want to know more about the story, there's a gentleman by the name of Dane Phillips. Dane Phillips wrote a book after meeting with myself, and I put him in touch with John DeCamp and Ted Gunderson. The book is simply called Battle Hymn. Battle Hymn, you need to understand why Mr. Phillips called it Battle Hymn, because this is a battle. This is a spiritual warfare, and this is he documents this in depth. Now, Dane Phillips didn't believe any of this at first. He did have an open mind. He came and asked Mr. Phillips, look at this. Mr. Phillips heard me lecture at a conspiracy conference. He came up afterwards and says, are you serious? You really believe this? I says, oh, you have no idea. You better get educated. And, he was objective enough to take a look at it for days, and then said, I'm going to write a book about this. And it is, if you haven't heard of the book Battle Hymn, I suggest you get a copy and read it, because this is a lot of the story here. But here's what happened. In the year 1983, a woman by the name of Judy Johnson, she lived in this California community called Manhattan Beach. Now, this is again just Miss Johnson. The case came to the attention of Bureau Chief Ted Gunderson at that point. This is 1983. She came forward to the local police, who then also notified the FBI Crimes Against Children Division. She claimed that her 2-year-old son had been sexually molested by a man named Raymond Bucky, a 28-year-old teacher at a place called McMartin Preschool. Well, whenever the police receive a sworn affidavit of complaint, they began their investigation by doing what? Notifying the parents of current and former students that were there at the preschool about the possibility of their children being sexually abused. And guess what happened? Yeah, many, we don't know exactly how many, but many children told exact same stories of what's best described as satanic animal sacrifices in tunnels underneath the front of the daycare facility, and bizarre sexual rituals in secret rooms at the school. Then a year goes by 1984, there's enough evidence that Mr. Ray Bucky was arrested on 79 counts of child molestation. His mother was also arrested as a co-conspirator, as well as several other members of the Bucky family. Why? Because McMartin Preschool was indeed owned and operated by the McMartins and the Bucky families. All of the children, again, we're talking 79 counts now, all of the children said they were told that if they told anyone about what happened, their parents would be killed. And here's what got Gunderson very much involved in this, because just as soon as Bucky's trial got underway in 1986, so it's 3 years, I mean, justice moves really fast, right? The trial gets underway in 1986, and the key witness was Miss Judy Johnson, who, again, the mother of her 2-year-old son who had been molested. She was found dead in her home, cause unknown. She was just found dead. She was just 42 years old. Exactly 1 year later, the prime police officer investigating the case was found suicided at home. And I actually pulled up the the Chronicle Telegraph article about another preschool witness dead. So the witnesses are dying off. With Johnson dead, Bucky's defense attorney was able to impeach her character during the trial. The attorney argued that the testimony of the children had been influenced or implanted by the psychological examiners who interviewed them. Bottom line is, Bucky was not convicted. It was retried, though. A second jury deadlocked in 1990, and the case was dismissed. So for the next 6 years, from 1990 to 1996, the FBI became involved through, again, Ted Gunderson's office. They continued to investigate with their resources the case, according to the Los Angeles Times. But they had to close their file, too. The FBI file on the McMartin case was filed because the Bucky family sold, get this is what's crazy, they sold the property, the preschool, to a guy named Arnold Goldstein, who came in and raised the property, just destroyed it, and started building an office building. And because the office building had to have firm foundation, they dug and dug and dug and destroyed the evidence of the underground tunnels. Now, by this time, Ted Gunderson had retired. Special agent in charge of the Los Angeles office. He continued the investigation, and out of his own pocket, with his own funds, commissioned an archaeological survey, was able to stop the construction of the office complex until the archaeological survey was completed. And I have a copy of that archaeological survey right here on my computer. It's stunning. Oh, my goodness. This was done by Dr. Gary Stickle, and it's amazing. Here's what let me just read the executive summary of Dr. Stickle's report that Ted Gunderson commissioned, and I quote: "During the month of May 1990, an archaeological project was conducted at the McMartin preschool site to determine once and for all whether or not there had ever been tunnels under the building, as described by various children's testimony. My excavation was carried out according to established scientific conventions, with careful research defining what might prove or disprove the existence of, quote, an underground feature that would connect to the surface of the site and extend underground for some distance, with dimensions large enough to accommodate adult human movement throughout it. My project unearthed not one, but two tunnel complexes, as well as previously unrecognized structural features which defied logical explanations. Both tunnel complexes conform to locations and functional descriptions established by children's reports. One had been described as providing undetected access to an adjacent building on the east. The other provided outside access under the west wall of the building and contained within it an enlarged, cavernous artifact corresponding to the children's descriptions of a, quote, secret room. Both the contour signature of the walls and the nature of recovered artifacts indicated that the tunnels had been dug by hand under the concrete slab floor after the construction of the building. Whatever the purpose of this elaborate enterprise, even more effort must have been devoted to filling the tunnels back in and trying to conceal any evidence of their existence. Quote, much of the fill dirt used for packing the tunnel spaces was mixed with historic debris, as if to mimic the surrounding terrain. Not only did the discovered features fulfill the research pre-qualifications as tunnels designed for human traffic, there was also no alternative or natural explanation of the presence of such features. My friend who used to be on Revolution Radio, go to hell, sir. You lie. You know there were tunnels there. So what are you trying to cover up? I told you I had this report. You didn't even want to look at it. And it goes on. Folks, 79 children do not lie when they all tell the same story and draw the same pictures. These little ones, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. It's sad. So on we go. We see now that, again, Gunderson had this archaeological survey completed. For over a decade, Mr. Gunderson tried to get the media to listen. To no avail. Alternative radio shows like The Story Behind the Story gave him a ready microphone, constantly trying to drum up support among the mainstream media. And all we got was conspiracy theory. There's nothing here. There is no, these children are just making up stories. Or worse, they're saying this was all a plot by psychiatrists, psychologists to put false memories in these innocent little children. And from that spun out something called the false memory syndrome. My goodness, how deep does this tunnel go? That's my question. You know, it's just amazing. So here we have finally 380 pages of FBI files that up until just October 28th had been classified as secret. Why? Why are you classifying this stuff as secret, Mr. FBI Mueller or whoever you are? I mean, come on. Why is this?
Mueller again. Mueller in 9/11. Mueller in the Finders. Wow, that guy again, huh?
I mean, it just boggles the mind that this, after repeated FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIA requests, nothing, but finally they did come out with this. And, you know, the connections to this, and about half of the files have to do with Ted Gunderson reporting on the Finders. This is what's really creepy, because I'll tell you, it's the Finders information, the links that I was following through in Utah and in the McMartin case and the Bucky case. I tell you, this is what really began to me to question Mormonism. Because you see, the CIA comes into Brigham Young University and recruits heavily. It's such a disproportionate representation of Mormons on the CIA files. It's beyond belief. And I don't know what in the world these Mormon men and women would be doing, thinking that procuring children for ritual abuse is any way part of national security. It's beyond the scope of rational thinking. But yet it is that. And you see, we go into something that really began to shock me as a believing Mormon young man. Okay, by this time it's mid-90s. I'm working with Gunderson and others that are just finding out, oh my goodness, we have an Elizabeth Smart kidnapping that's tied into this. Believe me, it's tied into this. The people that are convicted of her kidnapping were tied into the Finders. On and on it goes. This, we had Ted Gunderson come in and absolutely work with the FBI when Elizabeth Smart was kidnapped. We gave a debriefing to the agent in Salt Lake City in charge of the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they found on the smart home computer some amazing files that the agent in charge just happened to leak to the news media. And Mr. Ed Smart, who's now come out of the closet as being homosexual, did nothing but throw lawsuit threats against anybody and everybody that leaked this information. And so it was shut down and shut up. Oh, I got to tell you, this was so bizarre. You see, Elizabeth Smart was to be brought into the Finder's system. That's a little known fact. Now, it goes so much deeper because there's so many connections to Salt Lake City, the Mormon church, and the highest levels you see, and satanic ritual abuse. And if you think this is just make-believe, there is here I'm reporting this, and I'm contacted by over a dozen victims who come forward and start telling me the most bizarre stories of ritual abuse in underground tunnels under Mormon church houses and Mormon temples. Now, just like the McMartin case, if you have one or two people, it can be crazy, but when you have dozens of people telling the exact same story, and it corroborates in this story, it's like they don't know each other, but they're telling the exact same story. I kind of tend to believe them. Okay, I think there's very much a cause to concern, and so as a Mormon in good standing, I contacted the presiding bishop of the Mormon Church to find out how to handle this. The Mormon hierarchy has something called a presiding bishopric, as well as their general authorities, the quorum of the 12 apostles. I call them the 12 opossums now, because they're asleep at the switch and playing dead. Anyway, but one of the presiding bishopric, second counselor, I believe, named Glenn Pace, issued a memorandum. Just Google up the Glenn Pace Satanic Ritual Abuse Memorandum, and it'll blow your mind. This was written in 1989. Documenting Glenn Pace, P-A-C-E. It used to be all over the internet, but a lot of it's been scrubbed. It's have a hard time finding it. I believe Sandra Tanner's Lighthouse Ministry has a copy of it, but I have the original press release. I have the original memo. I have it in my files. It's like 11, 12-page memo documenting satanic ritual abuse in Mormonism at the highest levels. These people that came to me for help were not making this up. It deeply concerned Bishop Pace. But Bishop Pace, you see, was reporting this memo to the church leadership. Bishop Glenn Pace's memo was addressed to what's called the Strengthening the Members Committee, headed by Apostle Boyd K. Packer, one of the highest-ranking senior apostles of Mormondom. And Glenn Pace was frustrated because the memo was sent out in 1989, and 4 and 5 years went by, and nothing was done about it. It was ignored. Nothing here, Bishop Pace. Carry on, sir. So Bishop Pace, after I talked with him, and I urged him, I said, you need to make this public. And so he did. He sent out his memo to every news outlet in Utah. And the feces hit the rotating blade in a big splat, believe me. Damage control had to come in full swing. The governor of Utah at the time, Governor Norman Bangerter, put out a special blue ribbon panel to investigate the claims. And they found nothing, of course. It's just like investigating 9/11. The foxes guarding the hen houses and telling the foxes are telling the hens, hey, now if they're here, come over and let me just baste you a little bit here. Oh, yeah. Oh, nothing to look at here. This is all just a joke, right? Try telling this to the individuals involved in this stuff and who are suicidal because of their flashback repressed memories of some most bizarre things going on. Oh yes, it's crazy, yes, but it's not us that's crazy. These Satanists are what's just absolutely bizarre, folks. So Bishop Pace gets dressed down, gets, in Mormon lingo, he gets released. You see, unless you're a general authority, a 12 apostle or something, and a president, you're in there for life until you kick the bucket and croak, right? But not the case with a presiding bishop. You can be released, and he was released from his position, but given a nice pat on the back saying, thank you for your time. We're sending you off as a mission president to Australia, the land down under. Yes, he went down to Australia, and there for 3 years, comes back totally brainwashed. Glenn Pace had no memory of any satanic ritual abuse. Memo. At least he publicly denied. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. I didn't do anything like that. So now you see it was all fiction made up and somebody put his name on it. That's the official story now of the Bishop Pace memo. It's all fiction. Just like there's no tunnels underneath the McMartin Daycare Center.
Now, that's not the same guy that you were mentioning the other day, though. Who is the guy that the LDS whistleblower who's like, hey, so I noticed that a lot of, ranking members of the Latter-day Saints Church are abusing children. And they're like, oh, let me check that out. Huh. Well, we've determined that you're excommunicated.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same guy, or was that?
No, it's different fellow. But yeah, he's not a presiding bishop. He was just a regular bishop. There's regular lay bishops, and then there's the presiding bishop, because it's very top of the food chain in Salt Lake City. Glenn Pace was in the presiding bishopric. Okay. The Sam Young was the bishop that I was talking about before, about blowing the whistle on regular lay leaders being able to interview young minors and ask them sexually explicit questions privately. That's what was happening, and Sam Young was blowing the whistle on it. And he was excommunicated for daring to question the church authority. So yeah, that's Sam Young.
I know a former Mormon who told me that that's one of the reasons why she left the church. It was creepy, she said. She didn't like that. I can understand.
So anyway, yes, so the ties are just flat out amazing. I'm here to tell you, folks, just as there are tunnels, or were tunnels under the McMartin Daycare, there were massive tunnels under the Mormon Kingdom in Salt Lake, and these underground tunnels connect the city. It's underground in an absolute dark, hidden dark web. I mean, that's what my research is conclusively proven with dozens and dozens. Even talking, hidden videos taken in there and documenting this with pentagram altars and all kinds of things underneath Salt Lake City. So we know, and so again, Ted Gunderson came in and saw the ties into McMartin, and so he was active in Salt Lake investigating this, and then here we have Elizabeth Smart's kidnapping come in, and she's right at the forefront of that. It's bizarre. Again, strong evidence tying people of influential people, very much so, to this network. It seems like the higher you go in society, the more ties you have into this situation. Ergo, again, let's segue into Jeffrey Epstein. Prime ministers, presidents.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just the U.S. Prince Andrew, Jimmy Savile. Then there was a case in, the Beast of Belgium, Marc Dutroux case. There was a situation in Italy where they found out, they finally found out when somebody blew the whistle, but it was journalists and politicians and law enforcement, and it's always the upper echelons of society, and a percentage of those, apparently, in most modern Western industrialized nation, are into this really just horrible stuff.
Yeah, and so here's part of this that just was so. Gunderson knew about this connection with the Tallahassee, Florida. This is again tying into the finders, because the people that were clearly this Douglas Ammerman and Michael Houlihan, they were in this Tallahassee public park with 6 children, no relation to
children.
Yeah,
there were 10 children earlier, though. Did you hear the part where the guy, some lady, she was like, yeah, that guy, he came over here, he had 10 kids with him, he wanted to pick watermelons or whatever it was, he wanted to work on my farm, he didn't ask for any pay, just wanted a place for the kids to take a bath. Wait, what? But yeah, and then all this stuff goes on, and then, it D.C., Tallahassee, I think it was going on in Illinois and some other places, and all these guys getting busted. And then they find evidence of child trafficking, possibly to and from China. And then all of a sudden, once customs gets involved, it's a federal case, and then boom. This is the CIA, and we are now making this an internal investigation. You can just let those guys go. Meanwhile, the whole time that those guys, the few days they were in jail and the kids were in custody, they were getting, the places where they were in custody were getting threatening phone calls from strangers. But yeah, no, nothing to see here, folks. The kids with men in robes and slaughtering goats. Yeah, no, nothing to see. This is just ordinary stuff, guys. Satanic panic is fake anyway.
Yeah, this is there's a Washington Post article posted on February 7th of 1987. Again, it's back then, and this is what the Washington Post reported, and this ties into the finders chronology in this report released by the FBI finally. Here's a quote from the Washington Post article. Douglas Ammerman and Michael Houlihan were arrested at odd hours at a Tallahassee park with 6 unrelated children with no understanding of modern amenities, no hot water, TV, or phones. The children were bug-bitten, wearing old and ragged clothes without underwear, and 2 of the 6 clearly were obviously sexually abused. Before their arrest in the park, they had bleeding genitals, for heaven's sakes. Ammerman and Houlihan had told police that they were teachers from Washington, D.C., transporting these children to Mexico and a school for brilliant children.
Yeah. They don't know their names, but they're brilliant. They did not know the names of the people that were with them, even, but they were brilliant. It's effing heartbreaking.
The Washington Post said when police asked the men where the children's mothers were, quote, they said they were being weaned from their mothers. We're talking pretty young children here, 6 of them. Okay, here's what I want to get at. This is in the chronology of the finders, tying in again to the Ammerman and Houlihan case. How is it that Houlihan and Ammerman both are not prosecuted? Pages 4 through 10 in this FBI document shows that the finders were caught many times across the country, but various prosecutors all across this great nation declined to press charges. the FBI, State Department, and others helped cover it up every time. Again, this is what, again, I go back to Gunderson. That's one of the reasons why he left the FBI, to tell he could be more effective as a private citizen, because he knew there were people in the FBI that were dirty as could be, black and dirty with this.
Part of the cover-up.
Oh, my goodness. So, again, here's Mr. Gunderson, heartbroken that after all the years, he had never had an indictment, never had a conviction. This was in 2010, folks. It's quite a few years ago now, almost a decade. Ted passed away in 2011, as I think, and wow, I just it's heartbreaking to me. Well, we've got a few more minutes to the top of the hour and the break, but I want to just, on page 68 of the report, D.C. Metropolitan Police investigation absolutely confirmed that a top-level CIA employee was indeed a member of the Finders. Here's what it says. At approximately 15:30 hours on 2/18 of 87, the redacted, they took his name out, spoke with another name redacted. Reference only any contact by the members of the Finders may have had with the agency. He confirmed positively that redacted name was an employee of the agency from 1950 until 1971. Now, Isabel Petty, Marion David,
Petty's wife,
was the leader of all this. Yep. So all you have to do is follow those names through, and you see it connect.
Patch Adams. You remember the movie about the funny clown who helps the sick kids and has a hospital for them? Yeah, yep. He was friends with the Finders, and when all that stuff goes down, oh, they're just a little different. Honk, honk. Dude, when I found out that connection, like just the thought of Patch Adams and the Patch Adams movie, it just gets really dark when you realize, oh, so he's friends with them. Yeah. Are we still here? I don't hear you there,
baby. I can hear you. I'm not interrupting you. I'm learning what you guys are talking about. Don't stop.
Oh, hey, Jim.
Maybe we can move on to something less tragic.
Right. Hey,
is Tree back on?
I don't hear you. No.
Okay.
It looks like he dropped. Yeah, it looks like he dropped off. I don't know if he lost connection.
Well, he might be breaking up.
I wanted to maybe ask. I think we've got maybe 3 minutes till the break. Ask you guys. Did you guys hear Obama?
About the what?
We'll be talking about that and cancer culture. Cancel culture.
Cancer culture.
Yeah, cancel culture. Yeah. Because it's too woke. Last year, we weren't woke enough, now we're too woke.
Right after this.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in. Oh, listen up, folks. It is the story behind the story, hour 2. I apologize. I was knocked off the internet. I'm here at a kind of a special cafe. I hope I can. Am I coming through okay? Can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
I can hear you. You are coming by 555.
Awesome. Awesome. Good. Okay. What I want to really delve into the second hour, and of course, there's I want to just again give a shout out to those tuning in through the Goldwater Network and can 8chan and all those people that just are so helpful in getting the word out. Major, you said you had another little something to talk about at the top of the hour.
Oh, are you there, Bert?
Yeah, I do, Drew. Actually, there was something President Obama said, and note that I call him President Obama. If I met him, I would shake his hand, I would look him in the eye, and I respect what his position was in this country. A lot of people wouldn't do that with our current president. But
I would have a beer with any of our current or former war criminals in chief.
This is a really interesting turn of events because President Obama came out yesterday, actually about 18 hours ago, criticizing the cancel culture, and he's using the term, which is really interesting, casting stones. Casting stones is not activism. And he's really digging into what I think all of us are, incredibly frustrated with. Because the stones that have been cast our way knock out businesses. They knock out integrity. And the stones he's talking about are the stones that the media is throwing towards people who have a different opinion other than what is prescribed by not the government. This is totally different than Dragonfly in China. It's very similar, except in our country, the media has more power than the government. And this is a really interesting turn of events for Obama to come out and say that's not activism. And he's talking about casting stones, which is biblical, which is very rare for somebody of his questionable faith. So, I would urge everybody to go, maybe, if we had time, we could play the whole thing. But it's surprising to me that is there something to, and this is the question I'm going to pose to you, gentlemen. At the end of it, I'm from a gambling family, and we like to put odds on things. So, what do you think the odds of Hillary Clinton running? That would. That's a fair question.
I saw that as the glass throwing stones. I think he realized that the DNC is living in a glass house, for one. Also, they want to the last thing they want is somebody like Tulsi or Bernie to win. A lot of people, the DNC, they're communists. No, they're neoliberal corporatist war hawks. They're the other side of the neoconservative coin. If Obama was such a communist, then why did he bail out the banks and put us in a recession? I think this is.
Here's a good question for Jim. What do you think, Jim Watkins, owner of 8chan? What do you think the odds of Hillary running are? And then maybe extrapolate it out to if she ran. Do you think she would beat? Do you think she'd go head to head with Trump again?
I think the odds are 99% of Hillary running, unless she has a stroke or a heart attack or something, because she's an old lady now. Older. She's still fine looking, fair-haired girl, but she's got that physical problem of actually being really old now, and she's attacking her strongest competitor, and that's Gabbard, and even the president of the United States of America on the other party is like backing up the candidates. I think our president wants to debate Tulsi Gabbard because she's at least intelligent and not full of she's less messed up, and I do believe that maybe or maybe not. I don't know much about her because she's so stifled by the media. You know,
well,
the
isn't
media
it interesting that
but the fact is, she would not be pushing her down so hard if she wasn't the best competitor. So yeah, she's going to run. She's going to walk into the convention and say, "Pick me, guys." You know, that's her intention, obviously, for getting rid of the strongest competitor. And you know, the thing I do want to know what Gabbard stands for. I really do, because as far as her ethics and integrity, I doubt there's any problem there, because you know she's in a position where, you know, being a major in the National Guard that's an important position, and especially as a woman, she's got ethics that you can count on. Now, what her political views are, I have no idea, because they're keeping that from the American people. But even the president of the United States is willing to stand up for her against Clinton. So,
well, it's a
quagmire to run for sure.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to get some real, you know, before, you know, there were real political analysts, pollsters, when the word actually meant something, they weren't loading the questions, and political polls kind of meant something back in the day. So yeah, Tulsi Gabbard, yeah, why not? Give her a go, I think, but you know, you got to keep Bernie in there. You got to, and the bottom line is, what would be the best president for?
Because he's so healthy. When it comes to health questions, he'll be like,
Well, the question would be, I mean, the main question, I think that which is, you know, pretty much in our area, what would be the best president for the freedom of speech? Which is, I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, certainly.
Well, we're not talking about Democrats if it's freedom of speech. We're talking about the Republicans are way more on top of that at this time with Senator Cruz and with the President Trump obviously expressing his unedited and raw ability to possess that First Amendment freedom of speech all the time. You know, whether he's right or wrong, he's out there grabbing the world by you know what.
Well, so what happens when and we can say it, I guess, you know, pussycat. What happens when it comes down to it, when you're selecting a president, regardless of whether or not, you know, all of this hate is fueling you or whatever it might be. But when it comes down to freedom of speech and your business, for example, you, Mr. Watkins, your ability right now to endorse someone that might have your best interests, and by the way, you have a lot of people's best interests in mind, and we thank you for that. That's what's really key. That's really what I'm getting at here is, and it could be a Democrat, could be a Republican. I mean, it's most likely going to be somebody who has libertarian beliefs, but somebody that is maybe going to take a look at Facebook and Google and Twitter, and maybe take a look at PayPal with our rant that we went off, and maybe take a look at the social credit scoring system, which, it all comes back to that.
Who even could imagine the social credit scoring system could move into America? Oh my goodness. You know where that comes from? It comes from the investors in those giant companies. They
exactly, because American
with money that is not from America.
They're beholden to China, yeah.
They're talking like that.
Now that I got you guys riled up, you take it over.
Oh, hey, before we change subjects, we're talking about betting odds. At predictit.org right now, to buy one share of yes, Hillary Clinton will run for president in 2020, it's only 22 cents, but best offer on a no, she won't run is 80 cents. So the gamblers are of a mind that no, she's not going to run. I mean, like, I can see her doing it anyway, because she's absolutely crazy. She's absolutely crazy and doesn't know when to quit. But yeah, even CNN, even her best friends at CNN, after the latest bit calling Tulsi a Russian agent, which is funny because a month ago, CNN was also calling Tulsi a Russian agent. But I think, they did some focus groups and they realized this is going to hurt our chances to get Biden or Warren in. It makes us look like bad guys because, some folks really like Tulsi. I'm one of those folks.
Well, Jim, I'll give you 8-3 on a nickel for Clinton. Is that cool?
No online betting. No online betting, guys. Hey,
listen. That's right. Sorry about that, True.
Interesting discussion, and be that as it may, Hillary is a high level witch. I mean, she flies her broomstick on Halloween. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen.
What a day! And you know what? Today's Halloween, and they're what are they doing in Congress on Halloween? Did you guys notice that? It's like the witch hunt begins today on Halloween. My goodness.
I want to really dig into the rest of this file, the rest of the show, guys, and I want you to try and pay close attention to this thread that I'm going to throw out here and follow, because I sat there with Ted Gunderson in my house, and I broached this subject with him then, and his brow furrowed as he put his fingertips on his brow and said, "That is horrendous to think is possible, but I can't say you're wrong on this. I hope you're wrong, but I can't say you're wrong. I think you may be right." And here's what I was getting with this, because you see, part of the book that I helped compile with that he put out, it's a paperback, ring binder type of book called The Finders. There was a number of things that some white hats in the FBI had given to retired Chief Gunderson, and this is what I kept going back to this with them. Think about this, folks. We're not just talking. This is not exploiting children. This whole Tallahassee thing, exporting these to gifted children down to Mexico. You go and compare files with the D.C. Metropolitan Police. There's a farm, Finders Farm in Culpeper, Virginia. It was investigated. There's graves of children, unmarked graves, hundreds of children's graves in Culpeper, Virginia. There's these cages where these kids are kept and broken down into mind control slaves. Now follow this through, because I shared this with Gunderson at our conference there in Ogden 10 years ago now, in depth. And again, Dane Phillips was there. In fact, it was Dane Phillips who bankrolled it to bring all of us together and videotape the documentation. Because you see, more than half of it was my presentation on MK Ultra. Why are they doing this? It's not just about getting jollies by molesting these children. That's not the main reason, I submit. It's to fragment the child into multiple alters that can be controlled. The best way to describe it is, of course, we see this on there's a series of Bourne Identity where Jason Bourne becomes this super spy. Folks, this is a fictional account based on a true story. Okay, Operation Evergreen by a Dr. Greenbaum. And it happened in Utah. I shared this file with this Dr. Corland Hammond, the head of the psychiatric department at the University of Utah School of Psychiatry, was asked to give a keynote speech at the American Psychiatric Association back in New York, and he delivered the bombshell of bombshells. Folks, if you haven't ever read this, you need to read this speech. It's called the Green Bomb Speech, written by Dr. Corland Hammond. Just Google up Dr. Hammond, Hammond, Green Bomb Speech. Read the transcript of this. It'll blow your mind because, see, right here in Utah, Dr. Greenbaum was experimenting on these Indian children. He was in an absolute part of a network that involved what we now know to be the Finders, because this is where I brought this to Ted Gunderson's attention. You see, the Finders are all about creating...
It's actually about brainwashing.
Super soldiers. Listen to me, folks. Jason Bourne type of super soldiers, and they're doing it. Now, you follow through with what they're doing with these. Let me quote this FBI report. Let me find the exact quotes. I don't want to misquote it. And this just absolutely confirms it. Now, first of all, this is on page 85 of the 300 some odd page report. There are Finders property locations that have been documented in this report: Florida, Washington, D.C., Culpeper, Virginia, Maryland, Ohio, Illinois, Utah. And follow this. This FBI report shows that who funded them. The CIA funded them. The CIA founder ties into Dr. Greenbaum and Dr. Corland Hammond's bombshell, the Greenbaum speech, because Dr. Greenbaum was none other than Joseph Mengele, who was brought under Operation Paperclip and given a new name and identity. Okay, follow this through. Here's exactly what it says. Known activities in the CIA's MK Ultra. This is where it segues into the MK Ultra mind control of the CIA. The Finders were doing something. They were bringing these children in, creating multiple personality disorders, or MPD, within them. Why? To breed, raise super kids, quote, shape them into agents, deliver to them intel assignments. Now, we don't know how. Is it actually
so that they can pass it on to their progeny?
No, it's these are individuals that they can. There's a Charles Bronson movie again called Telephone, okay, where you have these sleeper agents. They give you a nursery rhyme over the phone, and suddenly you go into your intel assignment, but you have to have a multiple personality MPD structured, what's called an alter, to do that. So they're creating these sleeper agents. That's what it's all about. It has been since the 1950s.
G.H. Esterbrook's in the 1940s was for the U.S. Like, there were, we talk about, the Nazis invented mind control. No, there were guys like G.H. Esterbrook's and the guy at, McGill, the guy at McGill University also involved in this.
Shape them, deliver intel assignments to them. Now, what intel assignments? What could they be doing? Oh, could it possibly be give this sleeper agent number such and such who's part of the Finders program and given an identity, have them go and suddenly lock and load and start shooting something up. This is what I'm talking about, folks. It's to come and let's say you want somebody taken out. These are professional hitmen and women that are trained to do this. They are Jason-born sleeper agents. This is why the Finders exist, I submit. This is why they're doing the satanic ritual abuse to create such terror. See, there's a time in a young person's life from ages 5 to 8, the synapses of the brain is not yet connected, and if they're extreme torture, if they're extreme deprived, like these 6 or 10 children in Tallahassee, if they're deprived from their mothers, their family, they have no absolute. Their synapses become multiple personality. It's prescribed. It's all part of the MK Ultra files. Senator Frank Church exposed this, and I've got all of his documents. I shared this with Gunderson. I says, Ted, listen to me. This is why you're not getting any convictions. This is why you're not getting any indictments. This is to these miscreants. This is national security. It's their security. It's their power base. And that's how Ted just said, oh, it makes sense, but it makes me sick to think about this. But see, that's what I'm submitting is happening. You have all of these farms, these areas across the country, whether it's McMartin daycare and whatever, they're producing these kids and producing such trauma. It's trauma-based mind control. Satanic ritual abuse is very much a part of this, and it creates multiple personality disorder because that's exactly why the Mormons are involved, because that's exactly the story of Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith was under intense trauma as a young man when he had all of these operations on his leg that had typhoid infected in him, and he had no other way to survive but to dissociate, to go into multiple personality disorder when he was right in that critical time frame as a young lad. Joseph Smith Jr. was a multiple personality disorder, dissociative identity disorder, DID, whatever you want to call it, MPD individual. Of that I have no doubt. And from that group, you see, comes the Finders. This is why it's all tied in. That's what they're doing. And so, we have to expose this, I submit. I don't know who in the
FBI. The thing is, I need to just edge in a bit. We've been talking about this for the last couple of years. The writing that we've done in the Pedogate. I mean, anyone can go to the goldwater.com and look at the reporting that we've done on this topic. And I submit to you, and I think we've pretty much agreed. I don't want to speak for you, but that when it gets to a top level, it's certainly you've got child trafficking, but when it gets to the point where it's high-level extortion of the most powerful people on earth, that is the most valuable currency that you could possibly have. Think of something more valuable other than money, that and truckloads of cash or jetfuls of cash that are being carted around. Really think about what is the most valuable thing that you could possibly have. It would be President Clinton having sex with an underage girl. It would be royalty having sex with an underage girl. And you're telling me that this is not valuable. You're telling me that Mossad is not involved in this. And the reason we know this is because of the research that was done on 8chan. Now, there's a little bit of a hiccup, and Jim will give you an update. I think he's pretty much updated the world so much, and everybody keeps asking. So, Jim, when is 8chan getting back on? When is 8chan coming on? But it is going to be back online, and it's imperative that it's back online for the elections. Simply from the reason, if you listen to Rose's show last night that Jim gave, it is imperative that this and what I'm speaking about, I've got a different, and please tell me when I'm wrong about this. Please tell me that the research that was done on 8chan regarding pedogate, okay, and then people call it Pizzagate, and I'm happy with that. That's fine. And there's some weird things about Pizzagate, and everybody just says that it's a guy in a Prius that goes in an AR-15 and shoots a couple holes in ping pong pizza, and a story. First of all, most people that I know that own AR-15s don't drive a Prius. Okay, so there's so many different things to look at this. All right, are you with me, guys?
Didn't he accidentally hit like a hard drive? Like accidentally shot a hard drive, huh?
I don't even want to go that far. I think that he's a nut job, okay? They're nut jobs.
I like my neck right where it is. You're right. Never mind.
And by the way, there are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of people, and you guys know me. I am a proponent of the Second Amendment, okay? And I shouldn't have to be a proponent. I shouldn't have to say I defend my right. It's an inalienable right, okay? It shall not be infringed. So there shouldn't have to be any sort of pro-gun, pro-anything on the Second Amendment. There should be, hey, listen, we want to take your Second Amendment away, and here's why, because Australia did it, and it worked so well for them. And by the way, you need to go to Western Australia for that. But here's the deal, folks. With guns, with your real right to own a firearm, it is being whittled away right now as we speak. And that's when people, well, she's got a really cool name, Tulsi Gabbard. It rolls off the tongue so well, and she's from Hawaii. Well, what does she think about gun control? Okay. So I'm sorry we're getting back into politics on this, Drew, but I mean, this is about politics right now, the freedom of speech. And we need to make sure that when we're electing officials, that we have every side. And we don't have it right now, okay? Another side to things was something that got Donald Trump elected, which was 8chan. Pepe the Frog and memes won the presidency, okay? People really need to understand that that's why they want it shut down now. And they need to understand why it's so important that it comes back up. So, I mean, but on my specific side of things regarding the Second Amendment, if you're looking at censorship, if you're looking at the worst of the worst, I mean, which PayPal oh my God, I mean, that just went right through every bone in my body and made it shiver. I mean, just, oh man, I can't even tell you how angry I am that the banking system, and Phil and I talk about this all the time. I'm like, just wait until they put your social credit score on when the fraud department or when banks use this to shut down your bank account. And okay, now the terms of service for PayPal, which doesn't even have a place, that means that they're monitoring where everything that you're saying in the outside world. And if they don't agree with it, they're going to just take your money and shut you down and shut your business down. And they have, this is the real use of the word deplorable. So we got to be super vigilant about reporting all of this. And then, of course, what's going to happen when, they take their money and they take your ability to communicate, and now they're going to come for your property, and your property is, included.
Well, let me.
A firearm. Okay,
Major, I can't stay silent here anymore because I'm gonna say this once again. I'm saying it loud and clear from the rooftops. We have no elections. If you think for 1 minute, okay, that we have a fair, people aren't elected, and nothing happened with Trump. I've been on drumming this. I know for a fact Trump was appointed for a specific reason. There was no election to it. Now let me. You want to take some odds? Let me give you some odds here. 2020, we have. I mean, look at this. If you want to talk about Second Amendment rights, well, that's fine, all well and good. But I mean to tell you, free speech. Stalin said it best. Joseph Stalin said this: "It does not matter how they vote," meaning the people. What matters is who is counting the votes. And I submit here is the new neoliberal version, and I tell you this is from years of research. I mean, talk about a soapbox of mine. It doesn't matter how they vote. Really, it doesn't matter how people vote. If elections are close, all that matters is who is performing exit polls and cries louder about irregularities in the elections to the media. I'm telling you, folks, you ever heard of Argonne National Laboratories? Well, do your homework. Listen to this. Anybody with half a brain out of Tel Aviv can actually tweak voting machines and manipulate its functions. That is absolutely what's happened. There's a Brennan Center for Justice election officials. There's 33 states in this nation. 33 states reported that they don't know their voting equipment will be workable by 2020. They say that the machines are, quote, difficult to maintain and are constantly crashing and have failure and are absolutely prone to be hacked. The Brennan Center estimated that 43 states, along with the D.C., District of Columbia, used polling places machines that were no longer manufactured. They're not even modern. Wendy Underhill, Director of Elections and Redistricting of the National Conference of State Legislatures, said, quote, "Some voting equipment today works with old operating systems, Windows XP or Windows 2000. And our data storing facilities, we wouldn't even know what to do with today." Are you listening to me, guys? We have no free election, so why worry about talking about it? It's a matter of who appoints.
Remember when John Kerry, the Skull and Bones member, who was a descendant of English nobility and a distant cousin of one George W. Bush, who is a descendant of English nobility and a member of the Skull and Bones and a distant cousin of, that was an election. No, seriously, you could choose the one guy or the same guy in a different body. You got to choose which face the guy had.
Yeah. And you see, talk about a suppressed story. Do you remember, I don't know if you guys remember what I reported on right after the elections were tabulated. I said, here is how Donald Trump won. The votes were flipped in key states. Not every state had to do it, just a few key states. I know how it was happening. Believe me, I have an insider that told me exactly how it happened. And I said then, Trump is being put in place to create a specific stage of anarchy, of division, of divisiveness in this country. Liberals versus conservatives. And you see that happening like never before, haven't you? There's no reason for him to be impeached because there's no crime committed. Even the testimony on Capitol Hill said what he did was irregular, but it wasn't criminal. It's not criminal to talk and ask a favor of another head of state. It happens all the time. But see, nobody's talking about that. But nobody. You want to really make an impact, gentlemen. Start focusing on this problem. We have an election system that is absolutely a laughingstock. It's a joke. I will not vote until this is fixed. I sent this an affidavit. I tried to get people to sign up, and I was told, "Oh, you're just a crazy guy." No. DeWalt. These simply can be hacked. It's easy. It's easy as can be, and nobody cares. Oh, we're going to walk in here to this little booth and push this little button, and I did my job. I get a sticker that says I voted. I'm a good guy. Look at me. I did my American job. I'm so good.
Well, true. You know, I think that, we're going to have to rewind 3 years. And this was in 2016, and I was on your show. Alex brought me on, and I was talking about some of the things that I was using 8chan in a couple of different ways, and one of the things that was interesting was to analyze the most corrupt districts where voting corruption were historically that had happened, and we identified, I think there were 70 some different areas that we identified, and because some counties are different and they count differently, and some there are multiple polling districts, and basically where they're polling, the most corrupt. And so what we did is we put together a whole crew of people, and this is innocent. It might be a little devious, but we got the fax machine numbers, because they still had fax machines, but even back then. And so we faxed them invoices of paid invoices, okay, because we're not asking for money. We're saying, here's the receipt for what you purchased of a bunch of surveillance equipment, pinhole cameras and cameras in smoke detectors, and like $1,500 to $5,000 worth of equipment, and we just faxed that over. And there's no real way to tell because we covered a lot of territory. But I guarantee you, we probably stopped a little bit of voter fraud. I guarantee you it happens. Now, I want to tell you something for one thing that I know for a fact. In 2016, in Washoe County, if you are a resident in Incline Village, there is one place that you vote. Okay, that's where I'm familiar with the area. And what they did was they simply closed it. You can't vote. It's just closed. The hours are all screwy, and they just, there'd be some days where, whoops, no, you can't vote. Because they know everybody up there is going to be voting in a certain direction, so they just close it. And so you have to drive down rows and go to a polling station in Reno. Or you have to go all the way down. What are you going to go? Tahoe City? Or you're going to go to? No. You're gonna go down rows, and it's November. Okay, this presidential election, and you're going to have to put everybody on a snowy road to go down there. Winter came early in 2016. Yeah. So that's the type of stuff that they do, and that's the type of stuff that 8chan is particularly good at. And also we need to maybe give a shout out to our Phil. You want to remind our viewers how we found a particular actor that we love so much, who was raising flags? What was his name? This is the best thing.
Hold on.
Oh, you got it. I know you got it. Come on. Starts with an S. Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, remember? No. Okay, so Shia LaBeouf. Just for the people who aren't familiar with the power of 8chan, Shia LaBeouf. Okay, he's an actor, and he kind of freaked out and put himself in this prominent position where, wow, he's going to raise a flag. I mean, he put an art installation in Manhattan. It got, and he was, a bunch of people defecated, urinated, and then he got arrested, and and then they did another one. People got arrested, and then so he put up a flag. And so here's the deal. It's an art installation, a camera and a flag. Great. He will not divide us is what the whole thing was about. Well, obviously, it's a game, and he never intended it to be this, but it's capture the flag. And this moved pretty much all around the world. I know that it was down in Liverpool for a while. I know that it was it moved around the United States, and we got him every single time. And to tell you how, you got the audio, you got the video, and when it gets dark, you have the constellations, you got the stars, you have astronomers, you got people watching it, you've got people who understand what flight patterns are, and they start analyzing. Yeah, they start analyzing the flight patterns and you're talking about a whole crew of people, probably 5,000 people, that really made a point. And then they went into a grid pattern and started honking horns all the way around and found it. Okay? We'll always find it because we're smarter than you.
In image board lingo, that's what we call weaponized autism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
and that's the thing. I mean, I just want to say that that's something that can 8chan and 8kun, and it's coming back. That is something that is essential to combat voter fraud and combat stupid actors. All at the same time.
Well, I get that, but listen to me, guys. Again, it goes back to understanding and getting the word out. Let me just remind. Let's turn back the clock. Let's remember what I said back in November of 2016. I'm gonna say it here again. Look at the numbers. You don't have to tweak it much. Trump won Michigan by less than 11,000 votes. Wisconsin, which has always been a blue state, 23,000 votes. Trump lost the national popular vote by 2.8 million ballots, yet he won the Electoral College. Because why? He took Michigan, he took Wisconsin. Let me tell you, folks, those two swing states they were hacked. No doubt about it. There's swing states: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nevada. They have third world voting technology that is so easy to hack. It's not even funny. There's election system software, ES&S. I've been screaming this to anybody that will listen. But nobody seems to listen. They're based in Omaha, Nebraska. Look who owns ES&S. And you trace them to a nice little place in Tel Aviv. Okay? They are the giant of the voting machine industry. They have a market share of 60% of the customer voting system installations. Get this. This is New York Times, just this 2018. Thank you, New York Times. Kim Zetter found, and this should be top. This was buried back in the New York Times, but it's huge. Reported that remote access software had been found on election management computer systems in these swing states. Remote access software. Well, what does that mean, folks? It just means that somebody tweaked it. This is a smoking gun. Now, do you think it's any different in 2020? Doesn't matter who is in they will decide it, folks. They will decide who will win. And you have nothing to do about it until you change this system. Come on, people, wake up. The company, I think it's Motherboard, if I'm correctly, the magazine. But it's been screaming this too, that the internet, these remote access software simply can be hacked via the internet, and the Wi-Fi can do it. It's that simple. There was this computer tech that came in. I saw the video he produced. He's a Princeton professor named Andrew Appel, Appel. He comes in, and there's a Sequoia ABC Advantage. It's top of the line by ESNS, a Sequoia ABC Advantage voting machine. He comes in and sets it up and hacks it in 7 minutes and flips the outcome. Don't think for a minute that this isn't happening. We got to go back to punch cards. Folks, we got to go back to the ballots where you can count them, have a paper trail. What happened to the levers and punch cards where there's a paper trail? Guess what? They were phased out beginning in about 2002. 2000. Remember what happened in Florida? Now we have nothing but optical scans and direct recording electronics that go into a central system, and it's all routed through Tel Aviv and can be absolutely changed at the flip of a switch. You want to know who's going to win the election, guys? Look who gets the biggest run of applause and standing ovation at AIPAC convention. If Donald Trump gets a standing ovation, they cheer him, he's going to be reelected. Because there's no election. It's an appointment.
Right. True. We just got on the chat here, we've got Grog is saying that Cynthia McKinney, she's been on this show, remember? I think she was on a couple of Alex brought her on. And so Cynthia McKinney. Now, this is an interesting thought. Grog is saying on the chat here that maybe a ticket Trump McKinney. What do you think?
I think I'd vote for that if I were to vote.
I mean, it kind of like squares things out. Black female, but I mean, if you know her, I remember calling her one time to follow up on something that I think we were doing something at the Goldwater, and she is real as day. I mean, she is just a regular woman. Doesn't seem like a politician to me.
When we interviewed her, and I had a phone conversation before she went on the show, and I hit the issues. She was speechless. She says, "Dr. Ott, I never talked to anybody that knows this much." She says, "You're absolutely right." I says, "Well, I asked you, Cynthia, on air, what words you'd have to say about Hillary losing the election by voter fraud, by manipulation of the voting machines. What would you say to that?" She said this off the air, and I quote, she says, "Hey, how does it feel, bitch?" And that's a quote. Because she knew that that's what Hillary did to her. That's how she was kicked out of the House, because she refused to sign the Israel loyalty oath. I loved it. I said, "Cynthia, God bless you." I mean, really, she's on top of it. You're absolutely right. She's the real deal. But that's what these people hate. I mean, a Trump and McKinney ticket would kick some butt. But
I think that would be awesome. Okay, so I mean, I go 3-8 on that they would win, certainly. But I'm going to have to go probably like 1-80 that would happen. But it's a good thought. Jim, what do you think, Cynthia? Well, Phil, I think you were on the show with Cynthia McKinney. What do you think about her?
Oh, no, I wasn't on that show. I've briefly, just a couple messages back and forth on Twitter in the past, but yeah. And of course I follow her on Twitter. She and, it kind of leans towards libertarian-ish and really bright and well-informed, but most important, seems honest and earnest, you know, like what you see is what you get. Like I don't smell an agenda.
No, not at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like, she was that way on the radio, and I can't remember what, I ended up calling her. Alex asked me to call her and, to set up something. And she's, hello. It's just that type of thing. It was, it's a regular person on the end of the phone. And so, yeah, I don't know how Donald Trump answers a phone. I'm not sure, but it's one of those things. I mean, real people, but I can't help but to just edge back into this a little bit. True. I'm feeling, maybe I need therapy. I'm feeling conflicted.
We all need therapy.
Maybe I should call you after the show on this, okay? Because I'm, with Obama, I'm like, oh my, that's probably one of the smartest things I've ever heard anyway. And I mean, he stated this so eloquently about casting stones, and I mean, he's talking about Antifa. He's talking about the cancel culture. He's talking about this. He's summarizing what moderate Democrats don't like about socialists, which is the major divide right now. And I just found it astounding that probably the best work or the best words that came out of that guy's mouth, happened when he was out of office. And so I'm just, I'll give you a ring after the show or shoot you an email. But, I'm still, angry about PayPal, astounded and pleasantly surprised about Obama. So we'll have to work through that.
Well, again, look at Obama's history of who he is, where he came from, and there's no better example of a mind-controlled individual and a puppet on a string completely. Those 8 years of, please.
Probably the laziest, most deprived and depraved presidents that we've had, aside from Clinton. And actually, Clinton really wasn't president. Hillary was. And, take a look at what happened there. Take a look at what happened with Libya. That is, in a nutshell. I mean, it's just rob and steal the earth. I mean, we're the U.S. We're more powerful. We're going to rob and steal. That's all they care about. And, to Trump's credit, okay, well, I don't think he's really, it's like money is really, maybe not the big thing. You might want to think about, I don't know. I mean, people have an argument, satanic stuff, cultures and things like that. I mean, what makes men greater? But the bottom line is that certainly it's not Clinton. Okay. I mean, thank God it's not Hillary Clinton, because here's a woman who went in, killed Gaddafi, who is a friend of the brother of, who Phil and I interviewed, Malik Obama, the president of the United States.
That was him again.
Well, we got to take it out, ladies and gentlemen. And speaking of wag the dog, we need to talk about things that are strange. We didn't really get into the boogeyman Baghdadi. Is that real? Is he really ISIS? I submit no, ladies and gentlemen.